Welcome back to the pit, Battletech fans. Today I'm assembling some of my Gen Con haul, so when you go to pick up all this new hotness from Ironwind, you'll know how to put it together. We'll be assembling the Savage Wolf Prime and the Alpha variant of the Regent this time, with the Savage Wolf provided by Tom Bovey of the Minnesota tribe, and the Regent provided by none other than the Taskmaster of Battletech International himself, Patrick Saul. As usual, all the materials you'll need will be in the video description, but I'll show you here too. For this, I used my hobby clippers, some super glue, and an accelerant called Zip Kicker to make the glue set instantly. All these are available at fine hobby shops everywhere. I just got mine from Top Deck Games. Alright kids, let's get these bad boys ready for action. So first, let's take a look at the sprues. The Regent will be the easiest assembly of the two, with only 3 sprues and a torso. The head is separate from the torso, so just make sure you take note of it and don't lose it. The Savage Wolf is double the sprue count, with the legs and arms being 2 separate pieces. So with that said, the Regent is going to be where I start out here. So I'm going to grab my handy-dandy Army Painter clippers and cut the sprues away from each piece or set of pieces as I intend to use them. Sometimes there'll be a little extra metal from the sprue left on the Mini after you cut it. To use the hobby term, this is called flash. Use the flat end of your clippers to snip as close as you can, and continue to do so until you've removed as much of the flash as you can. He's really fast though, sometimes he's tricky, you gotta watch out. The torso connector has a small grate on the front of it you can use to determine which way is the front facing for the codpiece, but if it helps any, the front of the codpiece is the opposite side from where it was connected to the sprue before you clipped it. Some folks like to take a nail file or a hobby knife and go further with that cleanup, but I'm a hobbyist painter, not a pro. If that's something that's important to you, I highly encourage you to do it. If you're like me and close enough is perfect, let's move on. Give yourself a fair dollop of super glue and connect the legs with the codpiece in such a way as they'll stand up on their own. After holding them in place like this for about 30 to 60 seconds, stand them up and give them a shot of the old Zip Kicker to solidify the glue so you can move on. Only shoot the Zip Kicker when you've got the legs positioned where you want them in the final pose. The glue hardens up incredibly fast. The upper body of the Regent is about as self-explanatory as the legs. When you go to put the head on, look for the flat edge. That's the edge you'll put your glue on to connect it with the torso at the end. Otherwise, grab your super glue and give the Mini a dot in each shoulder joint. Connect the arms in and give it a shot with that Zip Kicker if you need to. Pose the arms however you like. They're all one piece, so give it an action pose if you want. Connecting the upper body to the lower body is a cinch at this stage. Place a good dollop of glue in the torso connecting piece and set the upper body on top before applying any zip kick that may be needed. Once that's finished, go ahead and slap the head on because you're done. Wasn't that easy? Enjoy it because the Savage Wolf is a whole other animal. See what I did there? So I want to point out which pieces are which here so you know what you're getting into from the outset. The upper arm or shoulder actuator for the mech is connected to the same sprue as the feet, while both the upper and lower parts of the leg, the hip and lower leg actuators, are attached to the arm sprue. It comes with 2 separate sets of missile pods, so don't get confused. One set is if you want the bay doors open, one is if you want them closed. Now you know what you're looking at. Let's move on. The upper torso is the easiest to assemble, so I think that's where I'm going to start. First, what I'm going to do here is cut the shoulders away from the sprue with my clippers, and once those are free, I'm going to do a little dry fit on them to make sure everything locks in place like it should. Nothing worse than having to force something on after you've already got glue on the sprue, you know? Once I know everything fits, I'll add a tiny amount of glue into the sockets and place the shoulders inside, holding them in place with my thumb. Remember, if you put Zip Kicker on them at this stage, let it fully dry before attempting to glue the lower parts of the arm on. That stuff stays active for a long time and it'll dry your glue up faster than you can do anything to stop it. After I dry the lower arms, it's second verse same as the first here. I apply a little bit of glue and pose the arms however I like, but I try to be mindful of where the legs are going to be when it's all said and done, since those aren't in a fixed position. I don't want to pose the arm in some way that gets in the way of or overlaps the leg, if you catch my drift. For the missile pods, I know this machine runs hot, so I decided to leave one pod door open and one door closed. You can do it however you like. These are real easy and intuitive. Just apply glue and zip kick. Shouldn't even be an issue for you here. The legs, though.
This is where the fun begins.
Once you locate the sockets for each, remember to install the legs at an angle. The Savage Wolf has khaki bird legs, not straight walking. Maybe like at a 30-degree angle or so, because the feet come separate from everything else. Just go slow, it's kind of tricky here. The idea here is to be able to attach the feet so that the legs stand up on their own without the aid of the torso connector. I didn't have a problem getting these joints into place for when it came time to add the feet. I use a decent amount of glue for the feet so the entire thing doesn't disconnect at the ankle, but your mileage may vary. Remember, you're trying to get them freestanding here. Once you're set and you have the feet attached, with each leg standing freely and by itself, attach the torso connector. Make sure it's as level as you can get it, because when you put the torso down on top of it, the mech will appear to be looking up or down depending on how uneven the connector is when it dries. So just try to be aware of it as you work. Spray it down with Zip Kick if you need to after holding the connector in place for about 30 to 60 seconds, and if the legs stand up on their own, you've done it right. Since I'm going to throw some Zip Kicker down on this, I'll give it about an hour and a half or so to dry, just so I make sure I don't get a huge chunk of glue sitting in that torso connector sprue as soon as I put it down. Trust me on this. Connecting the two halves now is pretty much the same as it was with the Regent. Add superglue to the torso connector and insert the upper torso into the socket. You can Zip Kick this if you want, but if the whole thing stands up on its own without the need for it, you can let it dry naturally if you don't want to kick it. Alright, now that we've got those two assembled and able to stand on their own without help, let's get a couple vintage hex bases ready, provided by Fortress Miniatures and Games. I did a short on this a while back, but I want to expand more on that in this video. I'm going to apply some Mod Podge to the inside of the hex bases until they're full to the brim. Then I'm going to give them about 2.5 to 3 hours to set. What I want you to remember here is to come back to them before they're fully dry, because when you can tap the top of the Mod Podge with your fingertip and it doesn't break the surface tension and get glue on your hand, that's the sweet spot. Give it a spray down with some Tester's Dull Coat to keep the Mod Podge from oxidizing and receding into the hex base. This will keep the surface flat for you to do up however it is you like once it's dry. I'd recommend at least an overnight rest once the dull coat's been applied, and then simply glue the finished miniatures onto the bases at points where the feet connect flush against the Mod Podge basing. Then they're ready to be painted. If you want to see a Savage Wolf paint tutorial, leave a comment and tell me what scheme you think would be interesting, and I'll paint it up. But otherwise, we're done. The Regent calls for what I would say beginner to intermediate level assembly skills, while I'd say the Savage Wolf is more for the expert modeler or the hobbyist who's more comfortable with their hands and working with lots of moving parts. I'm looking forward to fielding this Savage Wolf in future games, and if you like what you've seen so far, do us a big favor and check out some of the other episodes we have here on the channel. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tuckdavian, and I'll see you next time right here, out on the Space Lane. Sit, Boob Boob, sit! Good dog.
Be sure to smash our like button and subscribe to our channel.
Crowdfunding is when lots of people give you small amounts of money to help your passion project come to life.